There's a strange moment in life when you begin to wake up, not in the spiritual sense, not in the philosophical sense, but in the human sense. A moment when you start noticing things you were never taught to see, the patterns in people, the truth behind words, the intentions behind silence, the tension behind a smile that doesn't fully reach the eyes. And at first, it feels like clarity, awakening, a sense of, finally I understand what's going on. But then something unexpected happens. The clarity starts to feel heavy. The awareness becomes sharp. And suddenly, what once felt like insight begins to feel like suffering. Because the truth is this, awareness cuts both ways. It opens your eyes, but it also opens your wounds. You start noticing the subtle emptiness in conversations, the way people talk without really meaning anything, the way relationships rely on unspoken agreements, like pretending everything is fine, or ignoring the things that feel too uncomfortable to admit. You begin to feel the emotional noise of a room, even when no one is speaking. You feel the weight of your own thoughts, your own contradictions, your own hidden fears that you once pushed to the background. And maybe for the first time, you realize how much of your life was spent asleep, just to make everything feel lighter. Because awareness isn't just seeing more, it's feeling more, noticing more, understanding more. It's being able to look at a situation and immediately sense the deeper layers, the insecurity beneath the arrogance, the sadness beneath the anger, the loneliness beneath the performance. And it's exhausting. Not because awareness is fun, but because the world is not designed for people who see too much. Most people move through life with filters, with stories, with illusions that soften reality just enough to make it bearable. But when those filters begin to fade, when you can't unsee what you now see, the world becomes louder, sharper, heavier. You notice the contradictions in society, the emptiness behind certain ambitions, the emotional distance in the people you love, the ways you've been running from yourself, and maybe the most painful part, you see the gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be. Awakening doesn't hurt because the world changes. It hurts because you change. And now you're aware of things your old self wasn't ready to face. But here's the truth. This pain isn't a sign you're broken. It's a sign you're evolving. Awareness isn't the end of comfort. It's the beginning of transformation. And in the next chapter, we'll dive deeper into why awakening often starts with the collapse of illusions, and why losing what once comforted you is the first step toward becoming who you truly are. There comes a point in self-awareness where your mind stops accepting the easy answers. The stories that once made sense suddenly don't. The beliefs you grew up with feel too small, and the version of life you were taught to chase no longer matches the person you are becoming. This is the collapse of illusions, and almost every awakening begins here. When you were younger, you built your understanding of the world from what you were shown. Parents, teachers, culture, society, everyone gave you pieces of a picture of how life should look. But these pieces weren't the full picture. They were filtered, simplified, shaped by someone else's fears, hopes, and limitations. As awareness grows, you begin to see beyond those filters. You start noticing inconsistencies in the world, in other people, and in yourself. You notice that some relationships survive only through avoidance. You see that many people aren't chasing meaning, they're chasing distraction. You realize that success, as it's usually defined, doesn't guarantee fulfillment, and you begin to understand that most of what you believed was not chosen by you, but handed to you. This realization is uncomfortable. It disrupts your sense of stability. It forces you to question things you never questioned before. Why do I want the things I want? Why do I behave the way I do? Why do I stay in situations that drain me? Why am I afraid to disappoint people who don't truly know me? These questions don't destroy your worldview. They dissolve it slowly, like water wearing down stone. And this process feels like falling. Not because you're losing yourself, but because you're losing the version of yourself you built to survive. The illusion of everything makes sense. The illusion of this is who I'm supposed to be. The illusion of life works in one clear direction. When these illusions fade, you face a strange emptiness, a feeling of being suspended between who you were and who you are becoming. It's disorienting. It feels like losing your inner map. It feels like nothing is solid anymore. But here's the deeper truth. You are not breaking down. You are breaking open. Illusions collapse so the truth can enter. False identities dissolve so the real self can breathe. Old stories fall apart so new meaning can rise. Awakening often feels like suffering in this stage because clarity removes what once shielded you. It forces you into reality, not the comfortable version, but the honest one. And this honesty is the foundation of growth. In the next chapter, we'll explore what happens after illusions fall, the emotional intensity, the sensitivity, and the overwhelming hyper-awareness that makes awakening feel like too much. There is a moment in every awakening where awareness stops feeling like a gift and starts feeling like a burden. Not because something is wrong with you, but because you begin noticing things that most people never stop to see. When you become more aware, your mind becomes sharper. Your perception becomes deeper. You start picking up on emotions, tensions, and intentions that others overlook. You notice when someone is pretending. You hear the meaning behind their silence. You feel the unspoken pressure in a room. You sense dishonesty long before it reveals itself. And this level of perception is not neutral. It has weight, because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Most people navigate life with soft filters. They accept surface explanations. They ignore contradictions. They avoid uncomfortable insights because it protects their peace. But when awareness expands, your psyche removes those filters. You begin to see the machinery behind people's behavior. You see how much of human life is driven by insecurity, fear, ego, and imitation. You watch people argue not for truth, but for validation. You watch people chase goals they don't really want, only because someone told them they should. You watch relationships maintained by habit, not love. And suddenly the world feels heavier, because you no longer see just what is happening. You see whitely. This is where awakening becomes painful. You realize that much of what people call normal life is actually a collection of coping strategies. Distraction, denial, emotional suppression, constant stimulation, endless consumption, performing success instead of feeling alive. And when you become aware of all this, you start to feel out of place. You feel like an outsider watching humanity on autopilot. You feel disconnected from conversations that stay on the surface. You feel drained by environments that ignore the truth. You feel overwhelmed by emotions that others never acknowledge. Awareness amplifies everything. The beauty, the pain, the complexity, the contradictions. This intensity can make you feel like something is wrong, but nothing is wrong. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It's a sign of psychological expansion. The real challenge is that your emotional system wasn't prepared for this much truth, this much perception, this much depth. So your mind becomes overstimulated. You think more, you feel more, you analyze more, and the world becomes louder, even when everything is quiet. But here is the important part. You are not overwhelmed because you're weak. You are overwhelmed because you are awakening. When consciousness grows faster than your coping skills, the result is emotional intensity. But this phase is temporary. It's the transition between your old identity and your new clarity. In the next chapter, we'll explore this emotional overload, why awareness magnifies your sensitivity, and how to navigate the storm without collapsing into it. When awareness expands faster than your emotional capacity, your mind enters a state that feels like hypersensitivity. Suddenly, everything seems louder, stronger, heavier. Not just sounds or environments, but emotions, interactions, even thoughts. This hypersensitivity isn't a defect. It's a natural consequence of seeing life without the psychological filters that once protected you. Before awakening, your mind had barriers, unconscious defense mechanisms that softened reality. They filtered complexity, they blurred painful truths, they allowed you to function without drowning in intensity. But awakening dissolves these filters, and when they disappear, you begin experiencing life in its rawest form. You feel emotional shifts in people instantly. You sense tension before anyone says a word. You absorb energy from environments without trying. You notice inconsistencies in behavior that others overlook completely. Your nervous system is now processing more information than before, and it feels like too much. You become deeply affected by small things. A look, a tone, a sudden change in someone's mood, even subtle dishonesty. You're not imagining it. You're not being dramatic. Your mind is simply more awake, and your emotional body hasn't caught up yet. Hyper-awareness makes you more sensitive to the world's noise, to your own thoughts, and to emotions you once avoided. This can lead to overstimulation, emotional fatigue, irritability or emotional flooding, a desire to isolate, feeling too porous like everything gets inside you. And at times, it can feel like you're breaking down. But what you're experiencing is actually your psyche trying to reorganize itself around a new level of consciousness. Think of it like turning on a brighter light in a dark room. At first, everything feels overwhelmingly visible. Too sharp, too real, too exposed. But over time, your eyes adjust. You begin to see clearly without pain. Awakening works the same way. The sensitivity you feel now is the temporary discomfort of adaptation. Your emotional system is expanding its capacity to process a deeper, more honest reality. And here's the part most people don't realize. Hypersensitivity is not a sign that you are unstable. It's a sign that your old identity is dissolving. Your old coping mechanisms don't work anymore. Your old distractions don't numb you. Your old patterns feel foreign. Your old relationships feel misaligned. Everything that was once familiar no longer fits the person you're becoming. This is why awakening hurts. You're shedding layers you carried for years. You're confronting truths you avoided. You're feeling emotions you buried. You're noticing everything you once ignored. And that level of honesty is intense. But it's not the end. It's the transition. In the next chapter, we'll explore why awakening makes it difficult to stay connected to others and why you begin feeling like you don't belong anywhere. When you begin to awaken, something strange and painful happens. You start to feel distant from people you were once close to, not because you suddenly dislike them, not because you've become or detached, but because your inner world has shifted and theirs hasn't. Awakening changes the way you experience life. It makes you more reflective, more observant, more sensitive to truth, and less tolerant of superficiality. And the moment your consciousness expands, you naturally begin to outgrow the environments that kept you asleep. This creates an invisible gap, a psychological distance between you and others. You try to explain what you're feeling, but it comes out wrong. They ask what's bothering you, but you can't give a simple answer. How do you describe something that is happening at the deepest layer of your mind? So instead, you stay quiet. You withdraw. You watch others laugh, plan, and follow routines that no longer make sense to you. And slowly, you begin to feel like a stranger in places that once felt like home. This is one of the most challenging parts of awakening. You start noticing patterns in people, their denial, their avoidance, their emotional defenses, and it becomes painful to participate in them. Conversations that used to be fun now feel empty. Drama that once entertained you now feels draining. Relationships that relied on your old identity no longer fit who you're becoming. It's not that you're becoming arrogant. It's not that you think you're better. You're simply becoming more aligned with what is real. And truth has a way of isolating you before it liberates you. You begin craving deeper connections, conversations that are honest, interactions that are meaningful, relationships that allow growth instead of suppressing it. But these connections are rare, Bob. Most people are still living inside the psychological structures you are trying to break free from. This is why awakening often feels like a lonely path. You're not rejecting others. You're simply no longer willing to reject yourself just to belong. And this new honesty with yourself creates a temporary vacuum, a space where old relationships fade before new ones appear. It can feel like losing your world without having another to step into, like being between versions of yourself with no clear identity to hold on to. But this isolation is not a punishment. It is a transition. Your psyche is reorganizing, making space for people, ideas, and experiences that resonate with your true self. You are not meant to stay alone. but you are meant to outgrow the relationships that keep you from evolving. In the next chapter, we'll explore why awakening forces you to confront discomfort and why you can't go back to who you used to be, even if you try. There comes a moment in every awakening when you realize something unsettling, yet undeniable. You can't go back. You can try. You can pretend. You can force yourself to fit into old routines, old relationships, old ways of thinking. You can even convince yourself that nothing has changed. But deep down, you know the truth. Once your awareness expands, your mind refuses to shrink again. You can't unsee the patterns you've seen. You can't unknow the truths you have learned. You can't go back to sleep after you've opened your eyes. And this creates a sharp internal conflict. Part of you misses the comfort of ignorance, the ease of not questioning, the simplicity of following the script instead of rewriting it. But another part of you, the part that has awakened, can't pretend anymore. This is the point of no return. It's the moment where your old life stops being compatible with who you're becoming. For a while, this feels like loss. You lose motivation for things that used to excite you. You lose tolerance for environments that drain you. You lose interest in drama, in gossip, in chasing validation. But what you are actually losing is the version of yourself that was shaped by survival, not truth. And as that old identity dissolves, something inside you resists. Your psyche tries to pull you back into familiarity, even if familiarity was limiting. This resistance is normal. It's your mind trying to return to what it understands. But awakening breaks the illusion that normal was ever truly normal. You start to see how much of your life was built on autopilot, habits you never questioned, beliefs you inherited, goals that weren't even yours. And once you recognize this, you face a new kind of responsibility, the responsibility to choose consciously. This can feel overwhelming. It can feel like carrying a weight you never asked for. But it is also the beginning of genuine freedom. Awakening isn't about becoming enlightened. It's about becoming honest with your desires, your wounds, your fears, your potential. It's about acknowledging that your old self was a chapter, not your destiny. And this honesty is what makes going back impossible. You're no longer satisfied with survival. You want depth. You want truth. You want alignment. You want to live a life that feels real. The point of no return isn't the end of the journey, it's the end of pretending. It's the moment where you stop trying to fit into who you were and begin stepping into who you're meant to become. In the next chapter, we'll explore why awakening brings emotional pain and why that pain is a necessary part of psychological transformation. There's a part of awakening that almost nobody talks about, a part that feels raw, heavy, and strangely isolating. It's the pain that arrives when you begin to see reality without the filters you used to depend on. At first, awareness feels like clarity, but soon clarity begins to feel like exposure. You start noticing the truth behind people's words, behind your own patterns, behind the choices you've been making for years. You start to understand why you cling to certain relationships, why you tolerate certain behaviors, why you chase validation over authenticity. And this understanding hurts, because awareness shines a light not only on the world, but on the parts of yourself you've avoided. You see the wounds you never tended to, the needs you suppressed, the emotions you buried because you didn't know how to carry them. This is why awakening feels like suffering. It forces you to confront the exact pain your old self was designed to protect you from. Your defense mechanisms start to break down. Your coping strategies stop working. Your distractions lose their effect. And suddenly you feel exposed in ways you can't explain to others. This is the emotional cost of seeing clearly. You feel more deeply, you think more intensely, you question more honestly. And for a while, this makes life heavier. But here's something important. This pain is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that something inside you is waking up. Awareness hurts because it dissolves the illusions you depended on. The illusion that everything is fine. The illusion that you're unbroken. The illusion that silence equals peace. The illusion that avoiding truth is the same as healing. When the veil lifts, you begin to feel things you didn't realize you were holding. That ache in your chest when you think about your past. that heaviness in your stomach when you feel misunderstood, that tightness in your throat when you stop numbing your emotions. Awareness doesn't create this pain, it reveals it. And that revelation is the first step toward transformation. Awakening forces you to feel what you once avoided so that you can finally release it. This is why the path feels harsh, why growth feels like loss, why awareness feels like grief. You're not grieving the world, you're grieving the version of yourself that survived by not knowing. You're shedding a skin that was too small for who you're becoming, and the pain you feel is the stretch of expansion. In the next chapter, we'll explore how awareness becomes empowerment and why the suffering doesn't last. Awakening begins with pain, but it does not end there. There comes a moment, quiet, subtle, almost unnoticeable, when the heaviness you have been carrying starts to feel different. Not lighter, but clearer. You begin to see that awareness is not a burden, but a doorway to choice, a doorway to authenticity, a doorway to a life that actually belongs to you. Because once you understand your patterns, you're no longer controlled by them. Once you see your wounds, you can finally heal them. Once you recognize the illusions you were living under, you can step out of them and walk forward with your eyes open. This is the quiet freedom that comes after the storm. You stop tolerating what drains you. You stop chasing what doesn't see you. You stop betraying yourself just to feel accepted. And slowly, something shifts. Your mind becomes calmer. Your decisions become clearer. Your boundaries become firmer. Your sense of self becomes real. Not the self you were taught to be, not the self you performed for others, but the self that was waiting underneath the entire time. This is the gift of being too aware. Not the suffering, but what the suffering leads you to. A new kind of strength, a new kind of honesty, a new kind of peace. A peace that isn't built on avoidance or distraction, but on understanding. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to rely on your intuition. You begin to feel at home in your own mind. And perhaps most importantly, the world stops feeling overwhelming because you no longer need it to define you. You no longer drown in the noise around you. You no longer feel lost inside your own thoughts. You no longer fear the truth because you've learned that truth is what sets you free. Awareness becomes empowerment. Awakening becomes alignment. And you become someone who can walk through life with clarity, depth, and an inner steadiness that cannot be shaken. The suffering was not the end, it was the beginning, because every moment you felt too aware was actually a moment you were shedding the person you were never meant to stay. You were becoming the person you were meant to be, and that is the real awakening.